What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another amazing episode of Around the Block. My name is Hunter, the Tron DAO Community Relationship Manager, and today we are bringing to you episode 18, co-hosted by eJazz, Tron's Developer Relationship Manager. Our guest speaker for ATB episode 18 is Jason Brink, aka the Barbarian, Path of the Berserker, and President of Blockchain for Gala Games. Let's jump right into it.
I can walk you guys through all sorts of stuff.
That's awesome. This is Vox. This is one you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, this is Vox. It's really cool. We have an amazing art team that does this stuff. Like look at these things and check out the level of detail that they've got with voxels. But then also pay attention to, you see this, the subsurface scattering where it's slightly translucent on the edge. I'm a total freaking nerd about this stuff. The team led by, I think it's Charlie that's running this stuff. Absolutely incredible. They do really cool stuff. There's multiple collections. So we've got the original collection, which is Townstar Vox. Okay, and then we've got the collection that came next, which is Mirandus. Mirandus is one of our first party games that we're working on. The third collection is the Walking Dead Empires, and you can see members from each of them in here. And then the fourth here is now Trolls, and so here's some of what some of these little creatures look like. And we've done this NFT launch in partnership with DreamWorks and with Coinbase. So it's really cool.
Oh, that is super.
It's really cool. They
look really good. That is super exciting. Actually, let me take a picture of the screen real quick, even though we're on this call.
Well, you've got the whole recording.
I know,
thing,
that is true. I just love that.
And then
that's awesome. I got to send that to somebody immediately.
We've got the whole spider tanks thing here, which I think is pretty epic. These turtle tanks are freaking amazing. That blade spinner on top, epic. But yeah, this is
tortoise. That's awesome. I didn't notice the tortoise until you mentioned it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, so these are the hero tanks.
Oh, nice. I'm in a turtle phase right now in my life, so this is pretty sweet,
dude. Dude, these things are amazing, and
I want to buy a turtle. I'm gonna buy a turtle today.
I'll show you what this damn blade spinner does. This is the most epic weapon. I freaking love this thing. But we've got a lot going on. So we got spider tanks, which were launched yesterday. So development status,
that's amazing.
Live. Boom.
I must have been really nice
you in development or live. You can just start.
That's nice.
Yeah. So these are all of the games that we've announced.
Gotcha. I think the reason why I heard about you guys the first time, maybe a couple of years ago, was when Epic Games and Grit had that, the collaboration with you guys. And
it was earlier this year. Yeah, earlier this year.
Yeah. Gotcha. So it was earlier this year.
So this is who we are.
Yeah, your whole front page, when I read everything about it, I'm like, these guys are really cool. Then I started watching your Twitch and then your Twitter Spaces. Then I just looked at your Twitter, and then I really want to get into that. So how did you come up with your name? Let's say, who is Jason Brink,
sure,
and then Path of Berserker. Tell me about it.
Sure. So who is Jason Brink? So I've been in the blockchain space for a long ass time. Almost not completely, but almost since there's been a blockchain space. And for me, I originally entered the space because I saw blockchain as a way that I could really make a difference in the world. Prior to that, I had done some work in disaster relief and stuff like that. I spent some time in Haiti post-earthquake and things like that. And what we saw there is we saw people literally dying of starvation. The entire city, literally the entire city had fallen over. Construction standards were terrible. Terrible earthquake. I think 300,000 dead at the end of the
real bad disaster.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is that the entire world was sending millions upon millions of dollars to Haiti to help people. And the people on the street who needed help the most were getting basically nothing. Like almost nothing, because it would just get skimmed off at every level. And then, by the time, you cut $1 million check, and by the time it's done, you got like half a box of Pop-Tarts that you're doing. I started originally looking at things from that perspective, like how do we make this better? And blockchain is a great answer to that. But the problem is working with NGOs and governments and things like that is super, super slow. Like so slow, so complicated, so many roadblocks, so much red tape, so many like instances of well-intentioned uselessness that there has to be a better way, right?
Well-intentioned uselessness. I got to remember that.
Yeah, and it's they don't ever mean to do badly or poor. It's like
it just doesn't work.
Exactly, right? And so this is where the concept of like play and earn gaming comes in, and finding ways to create new economic models that may have a different impact on people. And so that's kind of where I got into the space. I joined Gala March, I think, of 2020. I was employee number 8. We're up over 400 right now. So yeah, it's been
amazing. That's insane.
Yeah,
and that's since 2020. So it's been 2 years, barely 2 years, 2 years,
almost,
and
2.5 years. Yeah.
Look at that.
Also, haven't taken a day off in 2.5 years though. So I don't know. Who's the stupid one? But it's.
If I had your job, I probably would not want to be not working, because it looks like it's so much fun.
Yeah, there are days where it's super fun. There are also days where it's so not you touched on it briefly before you started recording. Like, we launched Spider Tanks yesterday, right? Brand new launch. And I've never seen a launch ever for anything ever go completely perfectly. Right. Like, it's just not a thing that happens. There's always some unintended thing that transpires that creates, some sort of issue. And so, yesterday when the launch happened, originally bridging was not working correctly to bridge from Ethereum over to our L1. And so there were people just like, oh my God, why don't you guys have bridging yet? This is so terrible, unplayable, it's broken. Blah. And then you're spending time, like, you're sitting in Discord and you're like, really, guys, come on. Like, really, really? So there are days where it's not fun, but generally speaking, it's pretty good.
It seems like the community is pretty. You have a pretty big community. I got into Discord yesterday. It's like 136,000 people. It's huge. That's massive. And 68,000 are active.
It's pretty big.
It's actually really great numbers. And I remember seeing the chat room was just exploding during live time, because I had just joined at that point, and I was like, oh, mine's not working. And they're like, oh, it's because it's not live yet. And I was like, oh. And everyone's trying to figure, I was like, wow, it's live in a couple minutes. And being a part of that and seeing everyone was being super psyched, it was actually really fun to be a part of, even though I just joined that day.
Nice. Yeah, I'm glad you joined the community. It's one of the most welcoming communities. I invite anyone who's listening to come to galagames.chat and check it out, because it is one of the best blockchain and gaming communities you're going to find on the internet. It's very, very different from any other blockchain community and any other gaming community. It's very unique.
And I can imagine since you bio. I can imagine since you started in March 2020, you've seen that community grow tenfold, probably, I imagine. What was
much more than that, but yeah.
Well, what have you seen since then, if you don't mind me asking? That seems like a really cool progression.
Almost. Well, when I first joined, it was a few people. It was a few people who were hanging out and chatting in Discord. Not a lot was going on. Originally, I joined because Eric Schiermeier, the founder and one of the co-founders of Zynga back in the day, he had created this. I've known him for a little while. We're friends, and I was getting these marketing emails that were coming from somebody on his side. right? This was prior to me joining Gala.
Right.
And there were just some issues with the marketing emails, right? And, like some links were broken and, just room for improvement, basically. And so I had sent him an email and I'm like, hey man, I've got, I got this email. Here's some changes I would recommend, and I gave him like a list of like 17, 18 things. And I'm like, do you want to pass this on to your marketing person so they can do this, because it's like, I like the project. I'm interested in the project. I bought a couple nodes, prior to joining and all of that. And so he replied back with, he's like, yeah, we don't really have one of those. Do you want to come do it? And I'm like, I guess so. Sure.
Okay, cool.
So exactly. I started doing live streams and, just talking to the community. And back then in the early days, there was nobody there. It was a very small community, a few super, super tight knit people, but not that many of them, basically. So that's kind of where it started. But then since then, it grew a lot. It's grown tremendously. I think there was probably 3,000 or 4,000 people in Discord when I started. And so it's grown like crazy.
Would you know the number now? Like, I'll pull up.
Right now, at this exact moment, I'll tell you. 1 second. Server settings. Server Insights. Go to Server Insights.
I'm in way too many chats. Let me see here.
I know, right? So it looks like there was looks like Discord 3 days ago did one of their big things that they do every once in a while where they ban a whole bunch of bots.
Yep.
So it said as of yesterday, it is at 153,931 people.
And you said you came in around 3,000, so that's 150,000 new people.
Well, yeah, I mean, but if we want to talk about that, like, where we've seen a ton of growth is our Twitter, because I created this Twitter account. So it was at 0 when I created, and we're at 390.2 thousand followers right now. So
that's beautiful.
But
I think I even saw
it's awesome. I still can't get the damn account verified. I can't get anything verified on Twitter because they suck. But there's scam accounts popping up every 30 seconds. But yeah.
Yep. Cool. How did you though? Because I definitely got to figure out that answer. Why? So it's literally your title after your name. It says Barbarian Path of the Berserker. So I just really want to know why.
Well, we're a gaming company. Like at the end of the day, like full stop, we're an entertainment company. I'm much more closely tied to the gaming side of it than the film and the music side of it. So we, as a very, very game oriented company, we have a lot of absolutely super nerds, absolutely mega super nerds. And a lot of us play D&D. Okay. And so we actually have a D&D game that a few of us jump on and play fairly regularly. And, we decided that instead of going with like the corporate titles, okay, instead of going with the corporate titles, we were going to go with something that's a little bit more fun. So externally, I'm still known as the president of blockchain. But internally, I am the Barbarian Path of the Berserker. And basically what that means, it's awesome. It's awesome. And it's a very needed role because what it means is that when there is a problem or there's something that has to be taken care of, my job is to face tank that problem. Okay, so whatever it happens to be, I just brutally attack and destroy that problem. No holds barred, absolutely destroy it until it's gone.
Is that awesome? Which is awesome. Is that your typical play style in video games as well? Like
I am, dude. You've watched me play. You watch me stream. I'm the world's worst player because I have no strategy. My strategy is just run at hit. Okay, and everything that I do basically boils down to that. So in my life, in my game playing, and everything, I have very, very, very little patience for
You just
like
attack
really,
first,
really
think later.
slow, like things like that. I like to be strategic, but at the same time, and this is one of the reasons I get along really well with Eric, is that I'm extremely results oriented. It's got to
Yeah,
work. If it doesn't work, what are we doing? Um, you
exactly.
know,
It
and
just makes
so
sense.
exactly. So that's typically what I do. So
Mhm.
when people ask what I do, my answer is, I do stuff, whatever the stuff is
You
that has
do
to be
stuff
done.
and you get stuff done, and that stuff
Exactly.
gets done right.
Exactly. Or at least at least better than it is if it was not being done at all.
Right.
So, for example, and that's one of the things is like originally I kind of stepped into a position where I was, helping with the marketing, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I'm okay with that, but it's not necessarily my skill set. There are definitely people who can do, make infinitely better creatives than I can.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the idea is you come in, you do something until there's someone else who's better at you to do that thing. And then you push that thing on them and you make
And
them
then
do
you
it. And
get
then you
to
go do
your
something else that needs to
real
be done.
skilled role that you're really good
You
at.
have to get it out there. I mean,
Get out there.
when I started my first business when I was 13 years old.
Oh God,
Okay.
wow.
I was doing, and this, so at 13, this would have been like 1997. Okay. Doing graphic design and web development in Central California. And this was like back in the days where, everything was like hard coded and really clunky freaking HTML. And
Hmm.
you were using like terrible, like proto versions of like, I think, what was it, Microsoft Front Page to
Yeah,
like
that's
lay
about
out
right.
websites and crap like that. And
Right.
Microsoft front page. What is that?
It's
it's
very old.
old. I
It's
don't,
very
yeah,
old.
I don't even know if it exists any longer.
I
No,
don't think I've ever
but
heard of it.
we can get a picture of it. It's remarkably antique for what's
Yeah, it's
going
like
on
super,
nowadays.
super clunky, like nested
Mhm.
tables for websites. This was like pre CSS coming into things and stuff like that. So I was making
Wow.
like terrible web pages, but my whole thing is I'd like take my massive, gigantic freaking laptop, right? That I needed a backpack to carry the power supply for. And I'd go into businesses and I'd sit down and I'd like, go to like the local little cafe and I'd make them a business card and a new logo,
Yeah.
right?
Smart.
And I didn't get paid a lot to do it, but I was out there
Hustling.
constantly just working, hustling, beating the pavement, and I walked like through my entire town handing out the ugliest freaking flyers I have. Like they're terrible. I mean, I was 14
Yeah.
years old like when I
Mhm.
got to that point, but like, you know, it's what you have to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
to make it.
14
You
years
go,
old, 13, you're grinding. You're literally helping
yeah,
businesses at that age. And most people at that age, like right now, I think they're just doing like TikTok dances, but you're actually like getting stuff done,
I
which
can't do TikTok
people
dances.
even,
It's
it doesn't make any sense to me, but people now, like even in their 30s and 40s, they don't even have the mindset that you had at 13 to be like an entrepreneur or to be
yeah.
knowing that you need to like provide value and that's how you get value back and how you get paid and how you can make a difference.
Yeah, it's all about providing value. I mean, one of the phrases, I have a buddy who's Marine, and he has this phrase, "Embrace the suck." So like
Do if
whatever
it
it requires you
done.
getting into Discord and taking heat and taking flack when people are getting a little bit spicy and something hasn't gone exactly the way that it was supposed to. That's what you do, and
Yeah,
so
Exactly. Yeah, I think
that's
I
you
awesome.
know,
recently last week it was like if in your mind something that you have to do but you don't want to do it, that's the thing. That's your next step for your goal, whatever that is.
yeah, do that
Whatever,
thing.
just go do that thing. If that conscious you're looking for, that's the conscious. The thing that I don't want to do, that's the thing you got to do. That's a beautiful mindset. So I'm
The
glad you have that.
obstacle is the way.
What is your like? It doesn't have to be a Gala game, but what is your number one favorite game of all time?
Ooh, that's tough.
It could be like top three, top five, or something that you like recently. Like there's several really good ones for me too.
I think my favorite game series
Mhm.
is Fallout.
I have the mask in
Love,
my closet. I wore it for Halloween.
yeah, there you go. I love Fallout. Um, the my favorite game, like as a full on freaking game,
Hmm.
is probably Final Fantasy VII.
Good taste.
Um, I that game, and I'm talking about the original one, not the remake.
Yeah.
Okay, the remake is great. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing about that. But specifically, this point that I liked about the original one is that it reminded me, and still reminds me to this day, that graphics are always trumped by story.
Oh,
Okay,
always. The story
so
is
so
everything.
the story is everything, and so you had, in the original Final Fantasy VII, you had these characters that were made out of like 25 polys, 50 polys, like these weird blocky square Lego man looking things. Um, very, very, very clumsy graphics, but an absolutely gripping storyline
Yes.
that you cared about. And so that's something that is really important to me. For us, it's, we're extremely focused on community.
Yeah.
So
Community is
that
everything.
makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Hmm. That does make a ton of sense. I like it. Okay. And then going back to the community, how has since day one, since you've joined, you noticed the community's uh, experience evolved?
Sure. So the community originally, and this is an interesting thing. This is something that makes us very different from other companies in either the gaming or the blockchain space.
Hmm.
Um, Blockchain communities have a tendency to be extremely um, speculative, I guess is the good word.
Good word.
Um, yeah, so they're very sort of, they can be very ROI focused. And like, oh, token price this, token price that. And if you go to most blockchain discords or slacks or anything like that, what you'll find primarily is a bunch of people talking about tokens and
Yeah.
the token price.
Yeah. One year
And
one
exactly, and
land
they have a
now.
tendency to look at themselves as investors, which is not something that we like. And in our own Discord, we actually don't permit. Okay, which is very, very unique. We'll time people out for talking about token prices.
Wow.
And I understand that there are places that people want to talk about this stuff, but they need to talk about it not with us. We're a games and entertainment company. Okay. And so go talk about it somewhere else. Don't ask me about it because I'm not going to give you any sort of opinion on it.
Yes.
So like the Win Moon, Win Lambo, Win all of that stuff. Yeah,
So the
that's
gameplay, it even says it on
yeah,
the website. It's about the game. It's about the gameplay. It's about
yes,
the entertainment. It's about the fun. Even your
correct.
Twitter bio. It's all about the experience, the quality experience. And just by doing that, you'll succeed regardless. Like the price, whatever it is, the people who want the Wen Moon, that will come. But it will come because you're focused on the community, because you're focused on the
Yes.
gameplay and the important things. The
Yeah.
everything else, that's like a byproduct of doing it right, which is how Gala Games appears to be operating.
That's what we believe is that and tokens will do what tokens do. It just, whatever it
Yeah,
is, it is. But that's not going to stop us from making awesome games. And that's
correct.
the critical thing.
Correct. The market always moves in cycles. So even if it goes down, it doesn't mean you're not building behind the scenes. You're not developing these
Exactly.
games, forming these partnerships, getting stuff done. Like
You
good
know,
companies, definitely like Gala Games, they're always building regardless of any token price.
and the other thing that I find really interesting is that in our community, we're active. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this is something that you kind of see sometimes in the Web3 space where you'll have the founders who come and chat. Most of them are pretty stuck up sometimes. Like I went to an event so that Binance Blockchain Week in Paris, and there was somebody from a company. I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but this woman comes up to me and she's like, can I hang out with you and talk to you for a bit? I just tried to talk to some other guy and I asked what his name was and he says, you don't know who I am, and now I'm really scared, and you don't seem like you're mean and won't do that to me. I'm like, yeah, I don't. Of course
She
not.
probably like walked up to CZ Binance.
No. It was somebody else. It was somebody else, because we sponsored the VIP event at Binance Blockchain Week in Paris. So it was this really cool thing in this ballroom, and they had CZ was there, and a bunch of other people were there, and we all got to hang out and talk. But it was somebody else from another fairly prominent blockchain company, and it's just stuff like that just bothers me. But the point is like we're very, very engaged with the community, which is not something you typically see in the gaming side. Like the idea that executives from EA or Activision or something would be just hanging out, shooting the shit in Discord is absolutely absurd.
Yeah,
like they would never, absolutely never.
They're like focused on like behind the scenes, like they're hidden, they're not as active and engaged. But it's not even just like, let's say EA and Activision, which they should be doing what Gala Games is doing, which is more hands-on, like interacting with the community. Every company should be doing that. Every business really should be focused, having the core team members. Tron's doing it now. We're super active with our Tron DAO core ambassadors community group. Gala Games is, of course, they're doing it well. But that's what it takes to succeed, is having the main core team members being right there, hands-on, holding hands, involved, active, and engaged with the community.
How are you supposed to build something with a community if you don't understand that community? How can you make and this is one of the reasons that you see games, I'm not going to name names of games, but you see games where they'll spend $300 million building a game that then, like, 2 months after launch has 400 daily active users, because everybody's like, yeah, this is a dumb game. Why did you make this? You shouldn't have made this. And then the DAU or CCU of the previous version of the game released 5 years ago, still has thousands and thousands and thousands of people who play it every day.
Correct.
You could easily make sure that problem never happens by simply hanging out in Discord and talking to people and saying, gee, do you think it would be cool if we did this thing? And then I would go, yeah, no, I don't like that idea. And then you just don't do that thing.
You just don't do it. Don't waste the time, money, effort, and energy. Find out what they do want, build that, and then you keep the players and you can make more. You can get more. There's always going to be people that want to play, but the community wants to play what the community wants to play. You can't be like, oh, I'm just going to build something and then hope the audience is there, because sometimes the audience or the people might not be there yet. An example would be like right now, there's not a lot of people for AR games. I don't know if you know about that, but like the MetaQuest Pro just came out. So there are people, it's like ahead of its time, where in the future, it's going to be super cool. And maybe one day we can put on like glasses and then in your own living room play Call of Duty or like some scary games, like your whole house turns into a haunted house. Like I can totally see that coming. But if you were to launch that right now, like a haunted house game, but nobody has the headset, you're not going to have a lot of players. So there's a lot of really cool virtual reality spaces and AR things and metaverse projects that raised the money and launched. But like you said, the daily active users might be 10 or whatever it may be. It's because the people don't have the equipment or the tools or the knowledge of how to actually interact with what they're building. So the projects, instead of being like, hey, here's the future now, you could say, hey, community, what do you want now? Or just think, what would work today? And then build that community slowly.
What can we do with what we have right now?
Correct. And then you just slowly move into the future, which is definitely coming very fast with AR and VR.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agreed.
I was just saying, even with blockchain itself, like the way you guys have talked about, not talking about the monetizing of tokens, you're more about the gameplay, because I've seen some companies focus entirely on the token and none on the games, and you can see the communities kind of just deserting them just because of that reason, and that's because they don't listen to the community, which is huge.
Right. And the thing is like you've got to make games in the blockchain space, and this is one of the reasons that I really like Tron, is that you guys do actually build stuff. You've got to build the thing that actually moves the needle and pushes towards mass adoption. You can't, like if you look at most Web3 or blockchain games, what you see is very, very thinly veiled financial, simulations and slot machines with some stickers on them. Okay. And that's really all that most of them are. And, they're not real games. Like a game is something that you can play and have fun with
and feel,
and that's it. You don't necessarily have to have any of this other shit attached to it. You don't necessarily have to have a DeFi element. You don't have to have, a bonding curve. You don't have to have all of these things. You can, to be clear, you can, but the key is the game. You have to have a fun game. Okay. And if you have a game and the only reason that you would play that game is because someone pays you, that's not a game, it's a job.
Yeah, it is a job. Yeah. And nobody, imagine if you hated the game, and that's like hating your job.
Come on, man. There's imagine that there's a game that is a mobile-based game side-loaded onto Android that you play, and it is a 3v3 fish battler that you just sadly click on.
Yeah.
I mean, if you didn't pay people to play it, nobody would play it.
We would not play that. Correct.
And so that's why we take this very different approach. And that's why we have games like Spider Tanks, right?
Which is free to play.
Free to play, wickedly fun. You can jump in there. It's a blast. You can even jump in and go use other people's tanks, okay, through the pilot program. Like you can take a tank, purchase a tank, link it with your node, and put that into the piloting program. And then other people can just randomly come and use your tank.
People can rent your tank.
Okay.
So you can have a tank. Yeah. Is that tank then like an NFT on the blockchain?
Yeah, of course.
And then people will then they rent your NFT tank.
Yep.
And then they just beat everybody else with it.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of skill involved. Like I have a really good tank and get my ass handed to me like on the regular.
Yep.
So
it's like me definitely Call of Duty. I mean, I could have like the best guns and still immediately die level 1 of a zombie.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a terrible game, but yeah, people can just jump in and play and have fun and potentially earn a little bit of something too, which is neat. But yeah, that's what we want, and then the rest of it follows from that. Then you can add in some of these other more complex economic systems and incentivization structures and whatnot. But the key has to be the games.
The gameplay, the experience, the community. It makes sense. And then connecting them all. Are you guys focused on or having plans to, like right now, you have the Gala token for sure, and it's on its own chain or Ethereum chain or
Gala is an ERC20 on Ethereum. It's also it's been bridged over to a few different other EVM style things. There's a version on BNB chain as well.
Nice. Definitely cross chain.
We also do have our own L1 that it exists there as well. But that's primarily for use within the ecosystem because the L1 has not been like built into anything else externally. But that's definitely something that we will be doing in the future. But yeah, the reason that we have to do that is that none of the L2s really can handle the transaction volume of a live service heavily subscribed game. They have certain things that they can do, but when you have something like like Spider Tanks, right?
Yeah.
Imagine how many transactions
need to happen.
Let's just say, okay. Let's do some envelope math here for a second.
Let's do it.
Okay.
So let's say we've got 35 million daily active users, okay, which is about what Farmville hit. Farmville 2 hit. It was 35 million DAU.
Daily. You said daily active users.
Yeah, yeah. Now we have, for one game alone, we'd have to hit 40,509 transactions per second. Which is
and awesome.
Yeah, right. And then it's even worse if you have different geolocations. Okay, so like for example, it might be super busy at 8 p.m. right on a certain night. Fun fact, okay, this is actually a weird historical fact that ties in strangely with blockchains. Do you know how they determine the flow requirements for sewers in cities?
No. How do they do that?
They do it based on the number of people who get up and go to the bathroom during commercial breaks in football games.
In football games specifically.
Well, in anything that a lot of people watch. So basically, like you assume, okay, X number of people are going to be flushing the toilet X number of times per day, right? Yeah. But the reality is it doesn't actually work like that. You don't have a consistent rate. What you have is these massive spikes that occur at specific intervals. And, a blockchain has to be able to handle transaction volume spikes as well.
Right.
So something like that, like unless you can hit 100,000 TPS, which is a huge amount of transactions, it doesn't work. And EVM things just mostly can't.
That makes a ton of sense. I think, do you remember CryptoKitties? I think it broke or stalled or it didn't do something? Yeah.
CryptoKitties, dude, we broke Ethereum at one point in time. When we did our first Vox drop on Ethereum, like gas spiked up to an insane level. Like people were paying thousands of dollars in gas to purchase the Vox boxes. It was terrible. I felt awful because we were selling the Vox boxes at that time for 0.0888.
Yeah. 0.0888.
Exactly. And people were buying those. You could only buy, I think it was like 3 or 5 at a time or something like that. Or maybe it was even just 2. No, it was 5. It was 5. And then they would be putting those transactions through with $4,500 in gas. It was so rough. Like it was so rough. I had so funny story about that. Like I had figured this is going to take, like it is 8,888 of these things, right? I figured this is going to take a few hours
to sell.
Okay. Few hours, and we'll do a live stream and we'll talk about it and it's going to be great. And we do this live stream. It's probably still on our YouTube somewhere. It's the most awkward thing because the entire collection sold out in 8 minutes. And we're just like, and then so we're there and we're like we're dealing with this, and then we're dealing with people in the chat like yelling at us about gas fees, and we're like, we didn't make Ethereum, it wasn't us.
We don't own the Ethereum block. We just selling this.
Wow. And they're like, well, you should have known that this would happen. I'm like, I didn't, honestly. It was
that a huge catalyst to why the L1 was created because of that moment?
We've been working on the L1 for a long time. It was in progress before that, because basically you need to have, in order to do game stuff, you need a blockchain that does game stuff. Yeah. And so that's kind of where we started with. And one of the things that we believe is that you should be able to use any blockchain you want, which is one of the reasons that when we're talking to people like you guys, because we would love to integrate and, get bridges up and running as well, so that your community can, come in and play with our community, which we think is fantastic. But ultimately we need something that is specifically designed for games. And that's kind of where we started. You can use it for other stuff too, but it's designed to be able to handle
that what transactions per second and peak times and a lot of gameplay and the transactions nonstop. I mean, it just makes sense.
train now approaching as the box office express.